We are officially 1 week away from the MLB trade deadline, and this starts the Locked On Blue Jays trade deadline episodes.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode of Locked On Blue Jays is brought to you by Booking.com. Yeah, the right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your stay today. I'm Braden Iwasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5Iwasco, Carter First too, as well on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. Drop a subscription if you're new here on YouTube. You guys have been killing it lately, but still 68% of you guys that watch aren't subscribed, so you might as well hit that button. Helps us out, keeps us at the top of your guys' page so you can stay up to date on all your Blue Jays information and news. And yeah, like I said, we're getting very, very close to the MLB trade deadline, and there's a lot to cover. It's going to be multiple days of us talking about this because we want to get our opinions. We have a couple guys coming on for Thursday's episode. And then actually the Gate 14 podcast, Johnny will be joining us on Friday's episode. So stay tuned, a little Locked On Blue Jays and Gate 14 collab here. So that should be a ton of fun as well. So stay tuned for all of that content. But Carter, we got to start with what is going on with Bo Bichette.
Yeah, I think we'll just get right into it. So, per Bob Nightingale, says the Toronto Blue Jays shortstop Bo Bichette has told friends that he would welcome a trade, while first baseman Vladimir Guerrero Jr. badly wants to stay in Toronto and is open to signing a long-term extension. For me, this isn't really news. I mean, it comes at a bad time, I guess, but it's just, again, some look for clicks, looking for just Blue Jays storylines, things like that. For me, obviously, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. with his father playing for the Expos, playing in Canada. Obviously, a guy that has embraced the Canadian culture, does love Canada. Vladdy was born here as well. So it's definitely nice to see that. But we're going to take our focus mostly on Bo Bichette for this episode. Bo Bichette never really has expressed his interest in staying in Toronto long-term. Again, this would look different maybe depending on next year if this team ends up having a playoff run and making at least maybe winning a game in the playoffs. But so far with the track record, I think Bo Bichette just wants to win baseball games. That's not necessarily happening right now. So it's going to be interesting to see how this trade deadline unfolds, this trade deadline, and for the future as well. I think I'm going to start it for this trade deadline. So one thing that is obviously going to throw a big wrench into things, if you thought Bo Bichette was getting traded, is Bo Bichette did have that moderate calf strain. So he's going to miss multiple weeks. And that is something that we're going to have to consider, because is there going to be a contending team that's going to want Bo Bichette off of a struggling year, albeit he did lead the AL in hits in 2021 and 2022. So Bo Bichette will be a good baseball player again. Will that happen this year? That is a big question mark, especially coming off of an injury. You don't know when Bo Bichette's going to be coming back. There has been some reports that saying he only will miss a few weeks. Some reports saying that he might be shut down for the entire season. Again, that kind of depends on where he ends up. If he stays with Toronto, that's where I'm leaning for sure. Or if he is moved at the deadline. So a lot to cover on Bo Bichette, but overall just an interesting time for this article to come out about Bo Bichette and his, I'll say, interest in playing elsewhere.
Yeah, so the big question has to be is if Bo Bichette wants to be moved or is moved this season, which I am going to put it out there right now and say I don't think that he will be moved. I think the goal is to keep Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette on this roster with your main three starters in Gausman, Bassett, and Barrios going into the next few years here. And if they move Bo Bichette, it's going to be to a team that isn't looking for him this year. They're looking to build out the roster for the next coming years. So I take it with a grain of salt in the sense of that, is he going to go to a contending team? I think if and big if here, if Bo Bichette is moved, I don't think it will be to a team that is going to push for a World Series this year. I think it would be a team that is trying to build around some guys, fill out the roster, find a good shortstop, because we all know that Bo Bichette is a great shortstop. He's a great hitter. Yeah, down year, not a good year. The injuries have piled up for him, and he will figure it out, but it might not be this year. So if we're talking about this season and what could happen this year, I don't think he's going to be moved. But if it is, I think it won't be necessarily to a contender. I think it'll be to a team that is trying to build a little bit of a core. And I mean, the problem is that the Blue Jays probably aren't going to get a ton for him if they move him this year. So that's another big component to look at. And going through all these talks about trades and stuff, we will do a huge episode that's strictly on the entire team. It might be a 2-part episode. So you guys can wait for that as well. But Bo Bichette has to be a focus for this because there's so much rumors and talk going around in Blue Jays land right now that it's hard not to talk about right now, Carter.
Well, it's no secret that the Toronto Blue Jays just aren't playing good baseball right now. And Bo Bichette is also a big reason due to that. Just going over Bo Bichette's career stats here, let's start from 2021. I could do 2020, but again, he only played 29 games. So 2021 was where he started playing full seasons. So in 2021, the home runs he had 29, 24, and 20 home runs respectively of the last 3 seasons. Going into his averages, 298, 290, 306, obviously led the AL in hits, as I said, in 2021 and 2022. Has not had an OPS under 800 before this season. Just a down year from Bo Bichette. It's injury troubles, obviously, some of his swing decisions. Overall, this guy's a very good baseball player. I don't think there's any discussion there to be had that anyone's saying Bo Bichette's not a good baseball player. Maybe if you just started watching baseball this year, you'd be like, oh, that Bo Bichette guy's not very good. But again, if you've been watching the Blue Jays for even the last 4 seasons, you'll know that Bo Bichette is one of the best players on the Blue Jays and one of the best players in the AL. Saying that, if you sold Bo Bichette this year, you would be selling him on a down year. So I'm not saying you would get nothing for him, but it definitely wouldn't be as high as if you would have traded him last season, the season before. With Bo Bichette, and you kind of said he might not go to a contender. I'm sort of 50-50 on that. I think I know where you're getting at. But Bo Bichette, he's 26 years old. He has 1 more year left on his contract after the season. I think if Bo Bichette was moved at this trade deadline, there would be thoughts in place and a plan in place to extend Bo Bichette for whoever absolutely. He does get traded to, whether it's a 5, 6, 7-year deal. They wouldn't just want a Bo Bichette rental for a year and a third, I guess you could say. Yeah. So with that, it would be an interesting thing to see if the St. Louis Cardinals might take a flyer on him, as they have had a surprising season. Obviously, the Dodgers are always in one of those teams that are in this conversation when they have Mookie Betts being out and Gavin Lux struggling. Then the Atlanta Braves, obviously, Ozzie Albies is out. But again, Bo Bichette, whether you want to play second base, that's another thing you have to consider. One of those things, there's a bunch of options for Bo Bichette. But with this meniscus tear, or the calf strain, and the moderate calf strain. I'm not sure why I went meniscus there. But with the moderate calf strain, it definitely throws a wrench into things. I don't think a lot of teams would just want this rental for this season. So in that sense, I do agree with you. I think it could honestly go anywhere. I think if the Jays were trying to trade him, they probably would try to go out of the AL. So yeah, the Dodgers, St. Louis, the Braves, like I said, those 3 teams would probably make a lot more sense for Bo Bichette. But overall, we say this on the podcast every single time we talk about Bo Bichette and the trade rumors. Bo Bichette gets traded, and he is going to return to regular Bo Bichette, whether he stays on the Jays or whether he doesn't stay on the Jays. And that is one gripe that I do have with Toronto Blue Jays fans, is they're very quick to forget who is a good baseball player and who's not a good baseball player just off of recency bias. Again, we've probably had that a little bit here on this podcast as well. Yeah. When you've been watching Bo Bichette for 100 games and he hasn't really played that good, it's tough to be positive about Bo Bichette. But overall, yeah, if Bo Bichette is traded, you would get a haul for this guy, young guy. Has shown a lot of success. Would it be as much as he would have gotten in it when he was playing his best baseball? Probably not, but that is something the Jays are going to have to kind of discover here. They're going to have to see what they get for these deals. I don't think they trade Bo Bichette unless they get this unbelievable haul because, like we said before, Ross Atkins, his job is on the hot seat. If you trade Bo Bichette, you're almost throwing in the towel for this Toronto Blue Jays core, and then that probably means Ross Atkins is getting fired in the offseason. We think he should get fired anyway, but now he'd pretty much be writing his own firing slip, his red slip. So with Bo Bichette, it's just going to have to be interesting to see how this unfolds, and we'll have to kind of see Ross Atkins and the front office what trades they get, what offers they get, and how they're going to delegate those decisions in the future.
Yeah, I think something to remember is that Vlad Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette are not off the table when it comes to trades. They are listening to everything that comes in, and if something really piques their interest, they might pull the trigger. But I think it's going to take so much to make one of those deals happen that I can't see anything happen with those 2 guys. But again, we'll get more into Vlad and everything on a future episode, Carter. But I do want to look at Bo Bichette over the next couple seasons. Let's say next year is the same thing with this team, and they pray to God that this doesn't happen, but they miss the playoffs again. Because we can't look at this season anymore. This season's done. It's a forgotten season. Leave it in the dust. It's over. if this team doesn't make the playoffs next year, Carter, that's where I could see, okay, we got to go into a full rebuild here. And I think that would be if Atkins and Schneider and all of them don't lose their jobs this season, if they don't pull up next year and make the playoffs, it's everybody's heads on spikes for sure.
Well, going into next season, like you're just looking at contracts, stuff like that. Obviously, Danny Jansen won't be here. The bullpen's going to be a massive thing to address, but we're not really going to get into that this episode. Just looking at the talent on the field, you'll probably have Spencer Horwitz back here. You'll have David Schneider. Ernie Clement might have some sort of role. IKF will still be here. Dalton Varsho, again, not hitting well, but he'll still be here. George Springer, you're obviously going to be stuck with him. So a lot of these guys will be here next season. If the Toronto Blue Jays actually make some deals or they actually try to sign some free agents to bolster this offense, bolster the bullpen, this team isn't terrible on paper. When you look at the product on the field this year, I mean, you'd probably say that, oh, Carter, what are you talking about? That is ridiculous. And I couldn't really say that you're wrong. But on paper, when you look at these guys' career averages, they can be a very good team. It's offensively, maybe not as much, but their starting pitching is going to run it back next year. They're probably going to be just as good. Alek Manoah should be back. Obviously, there'll be Ricky Tiedemann, different guys throughout the system. Maybe Bowden Francis has a bounce back year. So overall, it's a terms of direction is really where I go with this Bo Bichette thing. Is that, do you want to compete next year? It seems like Ross Atkins management has made that very clear that they do want to compete next season, more of a retool rather than a rebuild. So if, again, you move Bo Bichette, you move Vladdy, that's signs of a rebuild. You trade Yusei Kikuchi, Yimi Garcia, that's probably just more of a retool. So if you actually take the offseason and you make the proper signings, maybe you go get a guy, obviously Cody Bellinger's not a free agent this year, but last year you go get a guy like Cody Bellinger. This offseason, Alex Bregman is a guy that they could use at the third base position. Obviously, some people in our comment section are saying we got big holes there, so we should probably fill them. But anyway, if you take the offseason seriously, you sign some big arms, you sign some big talent, offensively a power bat, this team could be decent and could actually make a run for the playoffs. Again, just depending on how much money this team wants to allocate to their pitchers, to their hitters, whoever they end up signing, and just don't take flyers on 38, 39, 40-year-old players that may or may not see the field.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, right? The offseason is going to be huge for this baseball team. And I think that's something that we have to look out for a little bit, because if they don't make a move in the offseason again like last year, we'll talk about this more in the trade deadline episode. But part of it is I don't feel comfortable running it back with this same group. I do in the sense that I want these guys here, but there has to be additions made. And I don't necessarily see this management group making those proper moves. We'll see what happens. This is going to be a long road. It's going to be a long couple months here in Blue Jays land of watching terrible baseball, watching guys leave the team, watching guys get traded. Hopefully they can figure something out. I just don't know how much faith I have left in this management group to make the proper moves. I think that, like I said, we'll get into it more on the trade deadline episode. I feel like they're going to make the wrong moves, and I'm going to be upset. And I just see that coming in, like, the whatever. I don't even know what, you can't call it a light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know what you want to call it, but like down the road, I can see what's going to happen here, Carter. But in saying that and talking about the bullpen and everything, our man from last season is coming back to the Toronto Blue Jays, and I don't know how to feel about it. We're going to get into that next. Today's episode is brought to you by Booking.com. As we always say, I've taken trips out to New York and Toronto, and we're going down to Minneapolis at the end of the summer here. And we always use Booking.com. It's the best site to use. I can't stress that enough. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you've always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're talking about your rival cities with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival cities. You know what? New York was a blast. I hate watching the Yankees, but man, it was a fun trip. The right stay can make you a fan of any U.S. city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com, on the site, or in the Booking.com app. Today's episode also brought to you by FanDuel. Like I always say, FanDuel, one of my favorite apps. I have been winning left, right, and center this past week. I'm killing it, and it's all thanks to FanDuel's same-game parlays. I've been rolling with the same-game parlays and the pre-made ones as well. They've been helping me out. I did win money on the Teoscar Hernandez win for the Home Run Derby, and I won on a couple Blue Jays games as well coming out of the All-Star break. I love sports, and I love them so much. I never want them to stop, but as the playoffs have wound down in the NHL and the NBA, we get fewer games. and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to, but FanDuel lets me keep the sports going wherever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. Carter, our boy's back. He's coming back. Erik Swanson making his return to the big league club. And you know what? I was a little bit not sure what the move was here, Carter. But I think you have to put your faith into this guy with the showing he put out last year. I think you got to have a little bit of faith that somehow, somewhere, he's going to figure it out. And with a bullpen that's already so depleted, I think you're just pulling up half-court shots right now from three and just praying to God that they fall. And that's, I feel, what's going on with this Erik Swanson move back up to the majors. How are you feeling about him being back, honestly?
Well, the bullpen can't get worse, right? Like, there's no way this bullpen can get worse. So with Erik Swanson being back, again, with his track record, again, you could kind of compare this to maybe a Bo Bichette season. Maybe it's not fair because Bo Bichette wasn't sent down to AAA. But Erik Swanson has been a very reliable pitcher throughout his entire career. I think just haven't gone that well this season. One thing I did look at, just going back into Erik Swanson, obviously he's making his return with the Toronto Blue Jays. Through one inning, didn't allow a run. It's a good sign. But there's a pitcher visualization chart on Baseball Savant, and I went through that, and I found it very interesting. And one thing I did see is that they give you a spray chart of where he was throwing his splitters. And there was a very minimal amount of splitters thrown low and down in the zone. And that is where you want your splitter to be. A lot of these pitches were either hung a little bit outside or just right over the middle. When you get a splitter up in the zone, it's going to be a lot easier to handle that pitch. It's going to not break nearly as much down as you want it to. It's always going to be like a little bit of a hanging changeup with not a lot of movement. Obviously, it's Erik Swanson. You're throwing your splitter. It's probably between 80 and 90 for most pitchers. Erik Swanson splitting that right in the middle at 85. But that was just a thing with Erik Swanson this entire season, is that the splitter was not looking like his typical splitter. And when you're mostly a two-pitch pitcher, obviously it does mix in the slider from time to time, but it's mostly fastball splitter. You need your splitter to be a good pitch. Just going into Swanson's splitter K rate, it's down 19% from last year. That's not going to play. 35%, all the way down to 16. Not very good. Batting average off the splitter last season was 166. This year, in his minimal time in the major leagues, 359. That's just, again, not going to play when your splitter is your second pitch or strikeout pitch. Pitches to get players off balance and just get ground balls, weak contact. So with Erik Swanson, location is a problem. There was a bunch of problems for Erik Swanson. You go through his Baseball Savant, pretty much everything you look at just hasn't been as good as his career averages. A lot of career lows for Erik Swanson. But again, you're looking at this bullpen. You're looking at the way this season is projecting. You want Erik Swanson to throw innings. You want Erik Swanson to gain some confidence going back in the next season. Because right now, if Erik Swanson goes out there and he gives up a run from time to time, it's not really going to matter in the grand scheme of things. Yeah. Again, we always say, if the Toronto Blue Jays go on this 15-game winning streak, that would be great, but we've seen 4 as the max. So again, we're not going to live in those delusions. Definitely not going to happen. That's why we're always in these sell talks. That's why every single article you're seeing about the Toronto Blue Jays right now is who's going to get traded, who's going to be moved, who are they selling. Toronto Blue Jays aren't making the playoffs this year. Sorry if I had to break that to you on this podcast. But Erik Swanson, try to get his confidence back. Just same thing as these Buffalo guys. You can make the same comparison. Try to get them some innings, see what you got out of these guys. See if Erik Swanson can battle his way back to even just being a little bit better than he was at the start of the season. If he could finish off the season with a 4.55 ERA, that's something you can build off of. That's something he can work on. Obviously, he has been working on a lot of things in AAA. So Erik Swanson's always been a guy I've been high on. He's had a very successful career, as I've said. And I just wish nothing but the best for Erik Swanson. Hopefully he can return to being a high leverage guy for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, and I mean, early on, it was trade Erik Swanson, get whatever you can get for him, get him out of here early this season. And I think that's such a ridiculous thing to say after the seasons that he's had going into this one, obviously. Yeah, it's a bad season. We've seen players have bad seasons. Bo Bichette, George Springer early this year was terrible. And, you know, I feel like as Blue Jays fans, we get really, really down on some of these guys really quickly. And I think, I don't want to say John Schneider was right, because obviously he was wrong in the sense that it's still early, because those games did matter. And now they're coming back to bite us, right? But in the sense with some of these players, okay, if this season's a throwaway, what is our option moving forward here? We need Swanson to be back. We need Romano to be good next year. We need George Springer to continue. And we've seen Springer be able to sort of go through the motions and figure it out. Now, the big thing is use this season as like a testing ground a little bit for some of these guys. And then going into next year, hopefully have everybody firing on all cylinders here. And you know what? I feel like that's what's going to happen with Erik Swanson. I'm putting on, I'm looking into the future a little bit here. And I feel like that's what's going to happen. And I don't want to be the guy that's, saying that this team's going to be a World Series contender next year. Because I don't know. I don't know that. And I don't want to be that optimistic, but a little piece of me loves this team and I want to see them do well. And what else am I supposed to say? They're going to be terrible again. And I'm just going to have, I'm going to watch another year of 5th place in the AL East. Like, no, thank you. I gotta just put it out of my mind and say, this team's going to be great next year. They're going to make the right moves. I don't know, Carter. That's just where I'm at. I got to pray for something.
Well, and just with this entire state of the Toronto Blue Jays, there's a lot to unfold in front of us here. You got to see what happens at the trade deadline. You got to see who comes back, who has good performances in this last third of the season. You got to see in spring training, obviously, next season, if some of these younger players continue to have some success. Leo Jimenez could be battling for a spot. Acid Barger is going to be playing some games as well. So you got all these AAA Buffalo guys that are going to have a decent sample size where you can see what they're going to be able to do. And that's exactly what this team should be doing with their bullpen as well. Again, this bullpen is going to be blown up. It's probably going to be worse somehow than it was for the first 2/3 of the season. It's just a perfect opportunity to just kind of throw whoever. Like put Nate Pearson in these very high leverage situations. Maybe throw Zach Pop. Again, I think we've seen enough of Zach Pop from the season. Yeah. But Ryan Burr, maybe give him some more opportunities. Throw Jordan Romano back in if he has that option. Again, you got to prioritize these guys' health more than anything. With guys like Jordan Romano, guys like Bo Bichette, maybe even Erik Swanson as we get into, but I would like to see Erik Swanson throw innings. But with those other two, you want to prioritize their health. You want them to be ready for next season, especially if your plan is to retool and try to make another run. There's just so much uncertainty with the Toronto Blue Jays right now. There's a lot of questions left to be answered, and a lot of them will be answered at the trade deadline. A ton of them will be answered in the offseason, whether it's the coaching, whether it's the roster construction. So many things coming ahead. Again, we just got to kind of have to ride this season out. Look for the little things, look for the little positives. Maybe if Erik Swanson has a good back half, that's something you got to take positively. If Leo Jimenez, if Spencer Horwitz can continue grinding, if David Schneider can get a couple more home runs, there's a bunch of little things that you got to look into here. Again, the bullpen can't get much worse. So is moving Erik Swanson back up to the big league team a problem for me? Absolutely not. Hasn't been good this season. I'll be the first one to say it. I am an Erik Swanson guy. But one thing I do want to bring up as well is a lot of people on Twitter, especially as of late, especially because Teoscar Hernandez won the home run derby, are saying that was a dumb trade. Can't believe they do this, blah, 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 blah. Maybe in retrospect, fine. You look at Teoscar Hernandez, you look at his production. Maybe the Toronto Blue Jays didn't necessarily win that trade, but Erik Swanson had a lot of control, obviously having control through next season. Teoscar Hernandez, it wasn't seeming like he wanted to re-sign. So that's something that they considered. They were like, hey, let's move on from our assets. Let's at least get something back in return. And if you're going to be mad at anyone, be mad at Ross Atkins for not re-signing Teoscar Hernandez this season when he had the opportunity to do so. He expressed interest in signing with the Toronto Blue Jays. Would have been that power bat we needed. Obviously, Ross Atkins went with this defense-first approach. You're not going to get the greatest defense out of Teoscar Hernandez. But who cares about defense when your offense isn't scoring and you're not hitting any home runs whatsoever? Teoscar Hernandez would have been massive for this lineup. And it's not Erik Swanson's fault that this offense isn't pitching well. Again, even if Erik Swanson is having the best year of his life, this bullpen still is not a very good bullpen. So a lot of things that didn't go right for the Toronto Blue Jays this season. They did start with Erik Swanson. That was one of those players that you expected a lot more from. But overall, I can't be like crazy upset over what Erik Swanson is doing because pretty much everyone else in the Toronto Blue Jays throughout the start of the season, other than IKF and Vladimir Guerrero Jr., were not playing very good baseball.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of holes on this team in it, and there's going to have to be a lot of moves made to figure out if they can be a contending team next year. Do I realistically think that they can fill all these holes in the trade deadline in the offseason? Probably not. But I think it's load management, figuring out what's the most important thing right now. And right now, you need a power bat and you need the bullpen to be better. And we are very well aware of that. And we're going to break down so much more of this trade deadline, of a little bit of going into the offseason, sort of a further look at what's going on with this Toronto Blue Jays team over the next, 5 days, I guess, Carter. Tomorrow we will have another episode. That's going to be something else, probably just on the games. Nothing too crazy on the trade deadline. We're recording Wednesday night for the trade deadline. You'll see half of it on Thursday, half of it on the Monday right before the trade deadline. And then, of course, like we said, we got the Gate 14 Locked On Blue Jays crossover on Friday. So tune in for that. Hopefully you guys are pumped for that one. That's going to be a sort of a weird episode, little podcast head to head. We sort of love it. I think it's just Johnny. Avery wasn't able to join us as well, but we got Johnny coming on, so it should be a great time. We're going to take a little bit of a break. We're going to preview the series. And Carter, I know you got to throw it over to the Locked On streaming service.
Yeah, but just before I do that as well, if there's a big trade for the Toronto Blue Jays, which we're hoping for, we will probably be going live as well throughout the week. So be sure to be ready for that. You see Kikuchi get traded. You see maybe somehow Bo Bichette or Vladimir Guerrero Jr. getting traded. We'll definitely be live very quickly off that. So be tuned in throughout the entire week for if there's any big trades, any big moves, we'll be sure to be covering that just sporadically throughout the week, whenever it does happen, whenever we do have time. Saying that, do want to throw it over to Locked On 24/7 streaming channel, Locked On Sports Today, the Amazon Fire TV's channel app. Whether you're into any of the major four sports, college sports, WNBA, at any time you want to watch it, it is 24/7. So perfect opportunity to check out expert analysis. But we got a series against the Tampa Bay Rays. Haven't seen them in a while. So we're going to break down all of that coming up. Take care of all your vehicular maintenance needs with our partner, eBay Motors. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. Over 122 million parts for your vehicle, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Whether it's a new spoiler, new brakes, a new alternator, or you just want to deck out your ride, eBay Motors will have everything you need. Their experts are super easy to deal with, very knowledgeable, and they give great advice that is specific to your needs. To keep your ride or die alive with eBay Motors, you can go to ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply, eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available for U.S. customers. Today's episode is also sponsored by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. They're the easiest and most exciting way to play fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks is very simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entries in as little as 60 seconds. So for this first game against the Tampa Bay Rays, I'm going to be rolling with the hot hands as I've been trying to do this entire season. So I have more than on George Springer and also Spencer Horwitz, bases at 1.5. And then with Justin Turner's struggles recently, I have less than on him at 1.5, kind of contradicting what we need at the trade deadline. We want Justin Turner to be a little bit better, but hasn't shown that. Hopefully he can prove me wrong. I would take missing a pick for a little bit of trade incentive for Justin Turner. But if you know which players are going to perform on specific nights, this is a no-brainer. Download Prize Picks and start making your picks today. You can download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit matchup to $100.
So, Carter, crap.
Great, nice.
There we go. Okay. So, series to go. The Tampa Bay Rays, the Toronto Blue Jays. Before we get into everything, Carter, what are you honest to God expecting out of this series?
Like I said, this is gonna be a very common theme for the rest of the season. I just want to see good baseball. I want to see close games. I want to see some offense. I don't want to see a 2-1 loss to the Tampa Bay Rays. Just disgusts me. I want these games to at least be entertaining. Obviously, I do want some Toronto Blue Jays wins. I would like a series win against the Tampa Bay Rays. But at this point, my playoff aspirations are pretty much at zero. I don't have a lot of faith at all. I just want, especially these trade deadline pieces, Yusei Kikuchi, I don't think is pitching in this series.
No.
So, again, not necessarily something I'm going to see from him. But Kevin Kiermaier, Justin Turner, Yimi Garcia, anyone that is speculated to be traded at the deadline, I want them to be good. And then these Buffalo boys, I want them to produce. I want them to give me a reason to be excited about next season. So that's pretty much what I'm looking for. Not necessarily wins. Again, wins are always nice. Definitely not going to complain about it. But I'm more so looking at individual player performances for the series.
Yeah, Carter, that's exactly how I feel. You just want to see certain players do well going into the trade deadline. That's what we need to see badly because we need these guys to perform well so we can hopefully get a little bit more value out of them. Looking at this series, first game, it's Jose Barrios. The pitcher has not been set yet for the Tampa Bay Rays for today's game. Wednesday, Eflin versus Yariel Rodriguez. This is the game I'm going to be most ready for, most tuned in. I want to see Yariel Rodriguez pitch good so badly. He's a guy that I really want. I just want him to be good. I think we have him locked up for so many years that I really just want to see him pitch well. He's got a 3.78 ERA on the season, 1-3. He got screwed out of a couple wins. Eflin 4.14 ERA. He's 5-7. And then on Thursday, Carter, it's Bradley versus Bassett. Bradley pitching a 2.63 ERA, 5-4 on the season. Bassett 8-8 with a 3.71 ERA. Yeah, I'm pumped for the Ariel game. He's got my heart right now. I can't wait to watch that guy play. It's always sort of an exciting game when he's on there just to see what he can do. Because I never know how he's going to be. If he's going to go out there and lay an egg, or if he's going to go out there and be absolutely electric with a bunch of strikeouts. So I'm hoping for the latter, but we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah, Yariel Rodriguez is one of those players that you could say is the future of the Toronto Blue Jays. Obviously, he's not very old. He's inked for the Toronto Blue Jays another 4 years after this. So he's going to be one of those guys that if you're trying to make a run next year, you're going to probably have to rely on him. When I was going over the starting pitchers for next season, I kind of forgot about Yariel Rodriguez, actually, because he's in obviously a little bit of injury troubles, a guy that hasn't pitched as much as I hope this season, but he has looked good. He has shown flashes that he can be a very good baseball player. So again, you're going into starting pitching for next season. Again, we still have a Tampa Bay Rays series. We should probably be focusing on this series. But my mind, just with all the trade deadline stuff, with how the team performance has been recently, I'm kind of looking into the future at this point. But yeah, you go into next year, you got Alek Manoah, you got Yariel Rodriguez, obviously Chris Bassett, Kevin Gausman, Jose Barrios is still here. There are multiple options that you could be throwing on this team. So it's not necessarily looking bad for the starting pitching, but overall for the series, yeah, Yariel Rodriguez, want to see some good things out of him. Chris Bassett, a guy, obviously you want to see good things out of him, but I'm looking at that Yariel Rodriguez game a lot more closely than I am at a lot of other games. Another one is that Jose Barrios game. He hasn't been very good recently. I want to see a bounce back start from him. Tampa Bay Rays offense isn't that good. I'll say it here. Again, maybe I'm being hypocritical because we have the Toronto Blue Jays offense, but the Toronto Blue Jays offense has been a little bit better recently. Been more of a bullpen and starting pitching struggle, actually, over the last couple weeks. But again, yeah, just looking for good player performances, looking for hopefully a Vladdy 118 off the bat instead of a 117. Just want to see him absolutely kill another baseball. So fun to see Vladimir Guerrero Jr. hitting hard home runs. And then just George Springer. Let's see if he can continue the tear. Another guy that was not playing very good baseball at all for the majority of the season, has really turned it on the last 21, 22 games. So hopefully we can continue that success. Hopefully we just watch good competitive baseball, and hopefully the Toronto Blue Jays can win a series. If I had to guess, though, I'm going to go, they're going to lose again. I think they're going to lose 2-1. Taj Bradley, I know he has a good ERA. I know his stats look good, whatever. I don't think he's that good. I hope the Toronto Blue Jays get to him. Zach Eflin, he's very spotty. He has some really good starts. He has a lot of blow-up starts. And then, again, don't know who's going tomorrow. I think that might mean it's bullpen day. I don't know for sure. I haven't really been following the Rays at all because we've been in our own sea of woes with the Toronto Blue Jays. I'm not really trying to watch another mediocre team. Again, I don't think the Tampa Bay Rays are that good. But here we are in Blue Jays land, sitting a million games under 500. So I can't really be saying much to which teams are good, which teams are bad. I guess I can speak a lot on which teams are bad because I'm watching a bad baseball team play pretty much this entire season. But Braden, I'll throw this out early, I guess, but we can continue kind of snapping around here. Locked On 24/7 streaming channel. Locked On Sports Today, the Amazon Fire TV's channel app, major from 4 sports, WNBA, college sports, pretty much any sport you can think of. Perfect opportunity to check out expert analysis. But Braden, you got anything else to add before we start watching this Tampa Bay Rays series?
Yeah, just one thing. I'm going to sort of give a rundown on the schedule of sort of episodes coming out in this next sort of week and a bit here going into the trade deadline. So like we said, today's episode is today's episode. Then tomorrow's will be Wednesday's episode, obviously, which is just going to be game recap, sort of whatever we sort of piece together, whatever's sort of happening. Then Thursday's episode will be the first day of the full trade deadline, huge episode with Dallin and Skylar Peters. We're going to have everybody down. We're going to get everybody's thoughts and opinions. Then Friday, it will be the Gate 14 Locked On Blue Jays crossover. I don't know. You can call it the Blue Jays podcast. I don't know. What is that Marvel movie? The Infinity War of Blue Jays podcasts, I guess. And then Monday will also be the back half of the trade deadline episode we had with Dallin and Skylar. We're going to sort of split it into two. So we have some content coming out right before the trade deadline as well. Carter said that we're going to go live as much as humanly possible. If there's any big moves made, anything of significant value, we will be live, so keep us tuned in. You can hit the bell, actually, if you're on YouTube. There's a little bell icon, and that will notify you guys if we go live. And if you see that we're going live, probably something big has happened, and we'll be ready for that. We're going to have Dallin and Skylar both on standby as well, in case one of me or Carter are at work or something's going on. We'll have somebody here on Locked On covering the trades at pretty much every single point throughout the day. It's going to be a blast. I'm so ready, Carter. I mean, this is our World Series right here. This is the Locked On Blue Jays World Series, the trade deadline. It's going to be a ton of fun. Get all the boys together. We've been trying to set this Gate 14 episode up for a while, and it sort of came at a perfect time. I know they are doing their
full uniform game, I believe.
Full uniform game. That's what Johnny was saying. So they're having a blast. We're having a blast. Everybody's sort of doing what you can with the season this Toronto Blue Jays team has given us. So it's going to be fun either way. We're going to have a good time. And yeah, we're going to have fun with what we're given at this point.
Yeah, you say the trade deadline is literally the World Series. It's probably the last thing that you can get excited about for this Toronto Blue Jays team. So with the next half of the season, I guess you could say the second half, we might start introducing some content that is not as like Blue Jays game related. Maybe we'll just start some other segments. I've been brainstorming a little bit of just random Toronto Blue Jays stuff, kind of just keeping things interesting because Toronto Blue Jays don't necessarily provide that every single day. So if we can spice some things up on our end, we'll definitely try our best to give you guys the best episodes that we can produce. But saying that, thank you guys for watching. We have noticed that I believe it's 68% of you guys are not subscribed. So if you guys are coming back, tuning into all the episodes, be sure to drop a subscription. Helps us out a ton and keeps us at the top of your page. Also posting on YouTube Reels, TikToks, all that, YouTube Shorts as well. Instagram is the other one I was looking for. Pretty much everywhere. We're posting on so many things. Obviously, our Twitters as well. But like I said, thank you guys for watching, and hopefully we can just see some competitive baseball this week.